Hi, I'm Andy Luke and welcome to the Driven Look podcast, a monthly show about film, TV, comics and books that I love. Today we'll be looking into Channel 4's Teachers, which celebrates its 20th anniversary around about March, and we have a special exclusive interview with the creator of the series, Belfast's own Tim Loane. So, you've maybe come through Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts here, or maybe through Nerdgeist, which is a wonderful entertainment site based out of Belfast, run by the wonderful Dave Cromie, and there's international geek nerd news on comics, TV, film, all that stuff that is really cool. And maybe you're here through Patreon. So I run a monthly Patreon where I publish poetry, short stories, comics, books, video, etc. I couldn't survive from my art without the help of my patrons. So you can get a subscription at patreon.com/Andy Luke. Patreon.com/Andy Luke. And you can maybe get some original art. Sometimes I do giveaways, little mini commissions for people. Of course, justifies my time making this free podcast, which is part of that. My first poetry collection, Chaos Magic, is now up on Amazon for pre-order. It's also up on Booksprout if you'd like to get in and get an advance review copy. And I'll be releasing that on February 27th at the Scribes and Scribblers Convention on Discord. A wonderful weekend of free talks on things like world building, character building. For my part, I'll be doing a presentation on sociological stories like The Wire, Game of Thrones, The Simpsons. I'll also be applying everything I've learned about 20 years making comics into a talk called So You Want to Be a Comic Book Star. So look out for that one. And you can find out by going to sascon.online. But look, let's get right into it. That swing and bounce of young Andrew Lincoln, a would-be teacher, rides to school on his pushbike, his blazer swaying as he outraces cars and bops over curbs. We're looking at Channel 4's Teachers, an ensemble series with a fashionable soundtrack and some of the best visual language in television. The series follows 5 to 7 teachers at Summerdown Comprehensive, mostly working in the English department. And no, I won't be talking about James Corden if I can help it. Our point of view character is completely not Rick Grimes. We meet Andrew Lincoln's Simon Casey on his 27th birthday. Simon is friendly. He wants to be liked by his students and colleagues, to be a breath of fresh air into the stuffy world of teaching. He wants to inspire his students so that when he gets rid of them, they will hopefully move on to greater things. He's a teacher who wants to be your mate and meet you down the pub for a couple of drinks. However, Simon fits into the mould of unreliable narrator. He's a compulsive liar. He's immature, neurotic, paranoid, desperate and narcissistic. He claims to care a lot about his friends, but mostly he only thinks of himself. Yet, as I said, completely likeable. We spend most of season 1 following Simon closely as he leaves the home he shares with his father, who's marrying a woman half his age. Simon's partner Maggie, portrayed by Zoe Telford, a sparky, well-adjusted policewoman who takes no shit. We come in at the start of their relationship. But for the most part, our time is spent with the teaching ensemble. Simon's best friend Susan, his enemy/lust, Jenny, and the lads Brian and Kurt.
Okay, I've got one. What if you could swap your head onto someone else's body?
How about my head onto Jenny's body?
Genius. Would you let me have a go? From behind, obviously.
Fuck off.
Well, at least let me have a look at your ass.
If anybody gets to look at your ass, it should be me. It's my birthday.
I thought we weren't mentioning your birthday. Give that here.
You can't do that. That's symbolic. Look what it says. Young person's rail car.
It's no use to you anymore.
Oh, you could still pass for 26. In a low light.
It's all downhill from now on.
Yep. You want to find yourself someone while it's all still in working order.
Piss off, I got off with the girl last night.
Name?
Maggie.
What'd she do?
Easy enough.
Why not?
Because it doesn't matter, you can't judge someone on what they do.
Can some people.
She's funny and sexy and I really like her.
Has he shagged her yet?
Might have.
Seeing her again?
Might be.
Nice one. Okay. Maggie's head on Jenny's body, or Jenny's head on Maggie's body.
Oh, God, Maggie's head on Jenny's body, definitely. Not that there's anything wrong with Maggie's body, it's just I couldn't cope with Jenny bossing me about all the time.
So a quick roundup of the characters. Then we've got Susan, who's a good listener, full of common sense, practical advice. The group's grown-up and therapist. Jenny, his nemesis, professional, standoffish yet bold, an overachiever, ruthless to the point of being unafraid of being disliked if it gets the job done. She's forthright and plain speaking, and she's played with wonderful conviction by Nina Sosegna. We've got Brian, who teaches PE and geography. He's puerile, loutish, dim, and seemingly shallow, though he has a deeper, heartfelt side. And he's played by Adrian Bauer, and his partner, Naveem Chowdhury's Kurt, his best friend. Kurt is also quite puerile. He's feckless, a liar, and a pervert with little emotional intellect, unless it satisfies his own self-interest.
Monday, count all the teeth in my head. Tuesday, anointed by a man in a dress.
The script is a seamless flow of conversational banter which comes to the front of the class from 9 a.m. It establishes its own uniform style and unique tropes which are rich in variety. So some of the features that you might find in any given episode of Teachers, you've got near the start of the episode is a staff room scene that sets everything up via headmistress Claire's announcement. Usually she'll have an awareness week happening. You have scenes of smoking, usually round by the bins, scenes in a pub. You've usually got overachieving students popping up. You have teachers giving a penchant for forcing details of their personal lives into their lessons, and more often than not giving students and each other the wrong advice.
Sex life's gone a bit missing.
Has it all fallen apart and you've forgotten why you loved her and you wish you were dead?
No.
Is it that you still love her, but she's looking at you and thinking, I wouldn't shag him again if you put a gun to my head? It happens to every relationship after a while.
How the fuck would you know?
Bad news. Says you have to work hard to keep it fresh.
50 ways to keep your relationship alive. Here's a good one. Why not invite your friends to join in?
Generous offer, but no thanks.
Surprise your partner in a public place.
What, like Tesco's?
Well, why not try role-playing? I tell you what, I'll be you, you be me. When's Maggie coming round?
The first season has a number of extraordinary writers, including Andrew Rattenbury of EastEnders and Monarch of the Glen, and Susanna Wright, who later moved into directing, including 4 of the 7-episode series Generation Kill, created by David Simon and Ed Burns. Teachers was created by Belfast's very own Tim Loane, co-founder of the much-loved and much-respected Tinderbox Theatre Company. He did some acting work through the 90s before writing 2 short films, one of which, Dance Lexi Dance, was nominated for an Oscar. I sat down with Tim for a chat about Teachers.
Yeah, well, I had been writing. I'd written a short film which the BBC made called Out of the Deep Pan. I had written for a couple of other shows, including Ballykiss Angel, which I wrote 1 episode for all those many, many years ago. I had a really good, healthy relationship with a producer called Jonathan Young. And actually, the story for how Teachers came about is kind of roundabout, like so many things. Jonathan and myself had worked together on a series that was to be set in Belfast for Channel 4 about a group of young people. It was called I Can See Clearly Now. And it was about a group of young people post-Troubles, young professionals trying to make their way in the world. and it was in their 20s. It was all about, a new generation in a new place. Anyway, it was very comic, and it was very much about the banter between these young people. Channel 4 was going to make it, and then 7 weeks before the filming was meant to start, they cancelled it. And I was devastated. I thought my life was over. I thought my career was over. 12 months later, Jonathan was not working as a producer anymore. He was working with as a commissioner with Channel 4. And he contacted me out of the blue and said, those characters that you were writing in that show that we were going to make? He said, would you be interested in writing a show about characters like that and setting it in a school? And I said, well, yeah. I said, I'd love to. I said, well, can I set it in Belfast? And he went, no. That's not what we're looking for. I went, okay, that's all right. That's certainly not a deal breaker. So Jonathan and myself worked together, toing and froing, batting back ideas backwards and forwards. And then Channel 4 commissioned me to write a pilot script. And I wrote that. And I found, my wife's a teacher, so I had easy access to a resource of research. And at the time, so it was 20 years ago, so I was 30, I was 36 then. So 34 anyway, my wife was a youngish teacher and was living that life, or a version of that life back then. And so I wrote a pilot script. Channel 4 loved it. And then we brought that script to Tiger Aspect, the independent company, and they then came on board to make it. So it all happened really quickly in the end. It wasn't me who wanted to do it set in a school. It was Channel 4 wanted a series. They had worked out that actually this would be a good place to set a new series. There hadn't been one in a while. So I threw myself at it, and the rest is kind of history.
Yeah, actually, I'd been given a rumour last night that Teachers was to be set in Belfast. So
well, no, it was never meant to be. I did initially try to, but they concluded it was a difficult time to write anything that was set here. It was so close to, it was 90s. Well, there you go, end of the 90s. The notion of writing something that might be, if you like, post-ceasefire, post-troubles in Belfast was completely different from what the agenda. They wanted an entertaining series. I'm sure you know a show, or maybe you know a show called Ally McBeal, which was an American show about a lawyer, but it wasn't really about law in any way. It was about a young woman who was trying to find love, I suppose. But she used to have these flights of fantasy where we would see her imagination would come on screen. And that was the thing Jonathan and myself talked about at the outset. I said I really wanted to do that. I'd never seen a British or an Irish drama that actually did allow for fantasy in that kind of way. So from the very beginning, that was what I wanted to do, so that the character of Simon was at the centre of it, and that every now and then we would go off into his little dream world and we would see the world the way he does, and we would have great fun doing it. And he would ride a bike a lot. I'm a very keen cyclist, and always was. And it still gives me, when I watch an episode of it, it's one of the things that gives me the most pleasure is watching Andy Lincoln pounding the streets of Bristol on his mountain bike. Reminds me of my youth too.
So yeah, that was something I wanted to ask about, because it's one of my favourite aspects of the series is that visual language and those manifestations of Simon's neuroses, but also the days of the week spelled out. And
that was again from the very beginning. That was when I was again aware of my wife's normal working week. It seemed to me that was the perfect way to shape an episode, was to introduce a theme for each episode at the beginning, possibly on the Sunday night before they go back, or else first thing in the morning on a Monday, but that every episode would start on a Monday and finish on a Friday. Now, not every episode in the end did, but that was the objective to begin with, because it gave a natural structure. The other thing that we thought from the very beginning was school is something that absolutely everyone has some experience of. There are very few other aspects of life that you go, everyone has an opinion about, because we've all been through it. So that was something that we were able to tune into. It's worth noting that I wrote the storyline I scripted 3 episodes, or the beginning, middle, and end episodes of season 1, and I storylined season 1. But it's worth noting that I didn't have any subsequent input to 2, 3, and 4.
Right, because I've read in places you credited as a showrunner, and I couldn't see your
Yeah. Do you know what? Do you know what?
Overview of.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's not back in those days. There was no title of showrunner. In fact, it's still very rare that you actually see the title of showrunner written on something. I mean, I was showrunner recently on Versailles season 3, but the title is never written in the titles. You know what I mean? It's a kind of specific job that it's kind of it can depend on the show as to how that's actually defined. So when it comes to teachers, it was the characters and the style of the piece was what I created, and the kind of the overall the world of it. It's really important in every series, but in particular regarding teachers to mention how much in the original the first director brings. All directors are crucially important, of course, but when you're starting off a new series, the first director brings a visual style of their own. They bring a vocabulary of their own. Richard Dale was the director of the first block of the first series, and he was endlessly inventive. So while I wanted the days of the week to come up on the screen, it was Richard who actually thought, wouldn't it be smart to sneak them in, to have the names actually, some of them printed on a piece of paper in all kinds of different places within the frames of the filming. So when I saw that, there were so many little visual things that Richard brought to it, and the other directors subsequently brought to it, that were tremendous, really tremendous.
Did you have many of those in the script?
A lot of them were, things like things like, and when I think back, the first episode, there's the moment class, I can't remember what they call 5F or something like that, the class that no one wants to teach.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that when the teacher then goes to open the door, there's a blast of wind and her hair is whooshed back and we hear screaming werewolves and things like that. That kind of detail was absolutely in the script. It's hard actually to define. I need to go back and look at it to tell you which ones were mine and which ones weren't. But so I think what I did was I created a playing field or a playground whereby the director and actors could have fun, because they certainly brought an awful lot to it.
I'm interested in how I've heard other writers talk about going into 12 drafts for a script. I'm interested in how things change once you were working with Tiger Aspect Productions.
Yeah.
I can see how it would be very seamless having initially conceptualized as young people, and now they're teachers, which is part of that sort of adult kind of thing.
Andy, there's absolutely nothing seamless about it. It's long drawn out and at times quite painful. The other thing was it happened when it actually happened. It was a lovely, nicely paced development with Jonathan Young and Channel 4. Then once we had a pilot, which I probably did 2, maybe 3 drafts of, then went to Tiger Aspect. We sort of had to start again then, because they insisted on having their own kind of input to the whole thing. Quite understandably, that's the way these things work. But that I'm pretty sure it was 13 drafts of episode 1 that I had to do. And in the end, I believe the draft that was shot was probably very close to draft 4 or 5. But the point is that when you're writing something new, you've got so much input from the broadcasters, from the executive producers, from the director, from the actors. Everyone has an input. And at times that can be kind of very intense, but it can be really quite hard to stand up for yourself in a situation like that. But that, I think what was shot was ultimately very close to what was probably, like I say, drafts 4 or 5. But you push it when you come up with a new idea. You push it this way, you push it that way. You try to make it, you want to say, maybe we should make it more of a love story. No, we pull that back. Maybe we should make it more comedy. No, we've gone too far, we come back. So you're pushing the boundaries in each draft. And then you're to work out what works best and what doesn't. And in the end, everyone has to be happy with it.
Those characters, how did they change from draft to screen, and did they make you laugh writing them? Had you favourites?
I always loved Brian, the PE teacher, because he was such a loser from the beginning. He was always going to be a loser. I have to say, I really loved writing the banter. I loved writing those kind of lost boys that they were. How do they develop? It's a good question, because it is really different when you write a comedy drama like that, a comedy series like that. To some degree, the characters don't change, and part of what you want is that the audience is coming back every week to see the characters doing a version of the same thing that they did before. You know, you think of a series, something like, well, it's more of a sitcom, but if you think something like Friends, the characters never change. Their stories might move on a little bit, but they always return to the character that you know and love. So to some degree, you're not really making the characters change. You are testing them, you're pushing them in different ways. And we had some pretty big storylines for them. I have to be honest and say some of the storylines from season 2 onwards, and especially by the time it got to season 4, were not the kind of things that I would have wanted to do. So I was very happy to not be part of it any further. It became less real and less about teaching, because for me it was always really important that the premise of the series was these are young people who are barely out of school themselves, and they're in a position of responsibility, and they're not very good at it. They want to be good teachers, but they're more interested in going to the pub. So that in itself was something. So the idea that the teachers were almost less mature than the people they were teaching. That's kind of what we were looking at, or at least a very, very close in levels of maturity to the people they're teaching. So that was kind of the premise. So it was always very important to me that every episode was very much focused on what they were doing in the classroom, or the issues they were having in the school, the politics around the staff room as well.
With the conceptualization, did I guess I'm thinking of Simon in the wardrobe, where he's coming in with his blazer on his bike and shirt tails hanging out, and then he's got that awesome soundtrack that's all over the series.
Yes, it was brilliant, wasn't it?
Those aspects of it, were they important?
Oh, I think they were crucial. I mean, in terms of the design, there was one scene in episode 1. I remember from the very first draft, there was a scene where Simon and Jenny were both brought before the principal, and I had very clearly written that he looks like a schoolboy who's in trouble with the head teacher, because that's what he is. And I think I don't think I ever said that he wears a tie and has a shirt tucked out like a schoolboy, but I definitely, the episode 1 was all about getting him into the head teacher's office and looking like a schoolboy. That was crucial to it.
Call me now, I'm hoping that you can explain. Little arithmetic's got me down, they fool me again and again. Little arithmetic.
Oh, the soundtrack. Oh, look, the soundtrack was hugely important. I remember in the scripts I would put in suggested tracks, but no, I have to say, the exec producer was very, very good at identifying. I think I have a much better music knowledge now, but she had a particular interest and access to a lot of the real sharp music in the particularly the British music scene. It was almost all music, British band, not all. I think there was at least one Australian band in there, but most of it was it was very much about the choice of music with bands like Badly Drawn Boy, Doves. It was very much part of the identity of the show. Oh God, I was delighted to hear that. And I still, believe it or not, listen to 1 or 2 of the soundtrack albums. They're that good.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff in there. It was my introduction to Belle and Sebastian, and
Belle and Sebastian, of course, top of the list.
Dandy Warhols all over it.
Yeah.
A lot of great stuff. Thanks very much. That's all I have.
Is that okay, Andy? Happy to oblige. And good luck.
The point is, you can't help who you fancy. The most unlikely person can pop up, and before you know it, you're thinking about them all the time. Same with Romeo and Juliet. They were compelled to love each other, even though everybody said it was wrong. But you can't choose who you fall in love with.
Didn't need to kill themselves over it.
But the only thing they ever wanted was to be together. They passionately believed in what they had. This was their ultimate dream.
They would have got over it.
They wanted to do things their own way. But the more they were forbidden, the more they wanted to fight for it. Have you never felt the urge to rebel?
Miss Page's class are just reading the text.
There's plenty of time for that.
I'm only saying that...
All right.
One could make an argument that Scenes and Teachers' work viewed as a dozen comedy sketches. Of course, it has an incredible seamlessness to it. The stories have been mind-mapped to make the most of degrees of character and theme. At many points, tangents affecting characters are secondary to the rising action, and they're exploited by the imagination of the writers to great effect. I adore the trivia culture banter, and the performances are strong and consistent for the most. The enduring aspect of Teachers is its use of visual language. Around the script there's a lot of improv acting. Take the scene set on a Friday afternoon after the bell is rung. Andrew Lincoln doubles back from the secretary's office to bust out some kung fu fighting moves. He's joined by Ellen Thomas playing the school secretary, laughing and giggling, and it's a really funny and sweet scene, and consistent with the unique non-central relationship between the characters there. Producers Jane Fallon and Rhonda Smith, as well as the directors, encouraged extras to get involved in this madness too. So many a scene has people fighting in the background, keeling over, throwing objects. There's just so much to look at. The show is loaded with quirky signifiers. The quintessential regular pub, an English pub, it has a bowling alley in it for no explained reason. The canteen staff are midgets. Their actions choreographed in relation to the scene and setting around them. There are other high fantasy elements too.
There must be something you've always wanted, something you've dreamed of with passion that nobody could ever take away from you, something you'd sacrifice everything for.
I would quite like to play for Bristol City.
You are one very sad individual. How about owning Man United?
Yeah, I quite like to have sex with Ryan Giggs, please.
That's more like it. And I'll throw in the whole of the first team, seeing as you asked so nicely. Can I interest anyone in the Australian women's beach volleyball squad?
I want you to teach me all of my classes.
I want you to be headmaster. In fact, I want to be you, Simon.
You are the best teacher ever, much better than that frigid teaching machine next door. Mind you, she has got a nice arse.
Make some more noise. Only my class is finding it too easy to concentrate. Don't worry, Simon. She talks to us like that too.
There are nightmare sequences. Simon in bed with his attractive stepmother, panning out to reveal his father sharing their bed, where Simon imagines Jenny as a head of year, complete with BDSM apparel, leading him around like a dog. Days of the week are marked out in tags where keen attention has been paid to typography design, so we might see the word Monday shaved into a student's hairline, or Tuesday represented on a piece of jewellery, or Friday on a red van in Royal Mail lettering. And that's not even to mention yet the parade of donkeys, lions, penguins and sheep that everybody on set seems oblivious to. The Season 2 cast expands to include JP, Penny and Matt. JP is liked by most everyone. He's a cheery, gay socialist with a balanced head on his shoulders. Psychology teacher and hobby astrologist Penny appears to lack worldliness, but she does know how to manipulate people with her breasts and her sad face. She thinks she means well. She's a passive-aggressive procrastinator, but quite fragile and played with incredible nuance. And then we get Matt. All the men want to be like Matt. All the women find Matt charming. He's funny, approaches issues objectively, and seems honest, though he's a compulsive cheat. Here's writer Ed Rowe from the Making of Teachers Series 2 Extra, talking about some of those new characters and the chemistry they bring to the ensemble.
The Penny Matt kind of strand is I felt was really strong, and it really kind of, I found Penny suddenly acquired this vulnerability, and it's interesting how you can get characters who, when you pair them up correctly with characters with corresponding energies, that they can suddenly come to life.
Let's take a deeper look at a random episode and how it plays out with character and story structure. Series 2 Episode 2 has an early scene on the integration of Jenny, Penny and JP in the teacher's pub ritual, which exposes how tired that has become.
Okay, top 5 world leaders' wives.
Hillary Clinton, Mrs. Gorbachev.
Imelda Marcos. Is this what you always do?
No.
Yes, it is.
It's only the categories that change.
I can't take any more stimulation. I'm heading home. Thank you for the uncanny recreation of my Auntie Margaret's funeral.
It stirs up the two A-plots. Kurt's problems with school secretary Carol, who has barraged him with text messages since their breakup, and Kurt, Simon, and particularly Brian's fixation on Penny.
You've got to say it, that's the game.
That's not a game.
Yes, it is. What were you thinking?
Fantastic tits.
As well as JP's instant likability and Simon's instant dislike of JP. Once more Susan is thrown into the role of counselling Simon through his absurd paranoia.
How does he manage to make me feel like a complete wanker every time?
He doesn't have to work hard to do that.
He shouldn't even be here.
Why not?
Because he hasn't been around long enough. You have to wait to get invited in, then you do the apprenticeship thing, work your way up to acceptance until your newness has become a thing of the past and you achieve inclusion. Then, and only then, can you suggest an alternative place to fucking drink?
You don't think you're overreacting a little bit?
No.
It's totally understandable.
What is?
You feeling a bit resentful.
I do not feel resentful.
What then? Challenged? Threatened?
Give me one good reason why I should feel threatened.
He's new, therefore novel. He's young, smart, funny, charming, enthusiastic, reliable, responsible, gets on with the staff and the kids, does his job well, appeals to both women and men, has good taste, good teeth, a good body.
I only asked for one.
However, that's not enough, so he cosies up to two pupils, splashing the ash, and asks if the new bloke is a bad teacher. He can't be as good as Simon, surely. Kurt manipulates Penny into pretending to be his girlfriend to get rid of his stalker. Out of spite, Simon declines JP's offer to go to a karaoke bar and spends his evening with Bob Porter, Summerdown's saddest teacher. Meanwhile, Penny is told the truth of Kurt's pathetic nature moments before his ex, Carol, arrives at the karaoke bar.
We're strangers to love. You know the rules, and so do I. For commitment's what I'm thinking of. You wouldn't get this from
This is turning into the worst night of my fucking life.
I just want to tell you what I feel. Never make you understand. Never
Help.
gonna give you up.
Anyone.
Never gonna let you down.
As intimated earlier, we have to talk about Kurt and Brian. Writer Richard Stoneman here from The Making Of.
And once they got into bed together, they became Morecambe and Wise.
Yeah.
Because there was that sort of innocence and the spark off each other that they have is very Morecambe and Wise.
Naveen Chowdhury and Adrian Bauer. They are one of the great bromance double acts. Hawkeye and BJ, Blue Beetle and Booster Gold, they have a togetherness that feels lived in. Happy to languish in each other's filth and almost happy not to raise their aspirations in any meaningful way. Obsessed with crude locker talk, its philosophical conjecturing, these two are the epitome of the teachers or children central metaphor in the show.
Okay, who's this? 3 years at Loughborough, and I still can't spell physiotherapy.
Is that me?
Is that me?
Is it?
Of course it is.
Okay, who's this then? We've run out of tissues because they've been wanking all night.
Nothing like me.
You knew it was you.
No.
Although they are low-key characters to begin with, it's Kurt and Brian's conversations which expand to include us. Their developing friendship with Simon and his friendship with Susan makes for that expansion of dynamics. When Andrew Lincoln stepped away from the show at the end of Series 2, Bauer and Chowdhury were set well to replace one lead with their two. So much so that years later Charlie Brooker called both actors to play Kurt and Brian-esque cops in his Police Squad-esque Sky show, A Touch of Cloth, which is a must-see.
Alright, Claire Shortenway's mother.
Oh, now you're asking.
I've got an even better one. Ian Paisley or Michael Jackson? Well?
Well, we're blokes. We wouldn't even know what...
I just closed my eyes and I saw Ian Paisley and Claire Short shagging on the front benches of the House of Commons.
Oh, Jesus. Got Bob and Liz in the toilets.
Oh, please.
Christ, imagine if they had a kid.
They want to be breastfed by Penny.
Can you still breastfeed with false tests?
Of course, it just tastes like UHT.
Yeah, but we're too busy winding people up to eat.
Did anyone invite Penny to the pub? Fuck for that.
Oh, I've just got an even more frightening one. Imagine Kurt and Carol having a kid.
Oh, has anyone ever seen a Razorhead?
Lincoln's departure is sudden and a trivial story point, yet appears to have been set up consciously in the style of Simon Casey's ways. The last few episodes of Series 2 give us his replacements. We don't get foreshadowing or closure on the between-series departures of JP, Jenny and Susan, with a character like Susan Gately played just beautifully by Raquel Cassidy. I had a mad crush on. Susan's not a protagonist, but a neutrally toned character. The straight man, there's a buoyancy to the absurdity. And Matt, by James Lance, Matt Harvey, provides that to some extent. So we get new addition Lindsay, played by the lovely Vicky Hall, and she fills that void too, as well as encapsulating some of Simon's youthfulness. Lindsay is a biology teacher, plain speaking, no BS, yet amiable and quite fun, vivacious, sexy, witty.
I still don't see how it's going to work.
It's really very simple. He got it. Eventually.
Once more.
We think of some questions to ask Liz, and we write them all down. We each pick a question. We ask Liz the question we picked, see if she explodes.
If she doesn't explode, we each pick another question.
Until someone makes her lose her temper, and that person's the winner.
You see, that's the bit I really don't get. In what sense is it a victory to provoke the scariest woman in Bristol?
You get 15 quid. 20 if you join in.
What's the point of winning 20 quid if your arms have been pulled out the sockets?
So you're not going to join in?
You're very sharp.
Actually, I'm not sure she'd turn violent.
Do you really want to find out?
I'm scared of Liz.
Yes, you are.
She's basically just a sad woman with problems.
A bit like you, really. Except you're a sad bloke with problems.
What problems?
Me or Liz?
Liz, of course. We all know about your problems.
Oh, she had a very difficult childhood.
Do you actually know that?
I'm just guessing. She seems a time.
Vicky Hall, who plays Lindsay, by the way, she got her break on Doctors and seems to have been typecast as a nurse. Line of Duty, Coronation Street, Holby City, Casualty. It had such an effect that when she left acting in 2014, she trained as an NHS nurse, and now she works accident and emergency at Alexandria Hospital. And full circle too, because Ken Loach recently cast her as corridor nurse in his 2019 drama about the gig economy. Sorry we missed you. While disjointed cast replacements often suggest a decline in quality, the focus on Kurt and Brian, along with these new characters, makes Season 3 a wonderful and resonant show, as much as the first two, I think.
I bet you two have had a quick snog just to see what it's like.
Fuck off.
After 12 pints, Kurt probably looks quite attractive.
Fuck off.
It's the same height as a girl.
And he's a pervert, so he'd probably do things most other girls wouldn't.
What a fucking pervert. Just like women.
And what is it you like about women exactly? Apart from the fact that you can't have one.
Lots of things, actually. I like them because... Shit. Basic Instinct's on tonight.
Fuck. Missed it, haven't we?
No, it's not until 35 minutes in.
Here's fan Cheryl Kane with a few words.
Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I absolutely love the TV show Teachers. I would definitely recommend watching it. It's so funny in so many ways. I think what I really love about it is when you're growing up, you think of teachers as people who know everything, and they kind of don't really have a life outside of teaching. They're just your teacher. But the reality is so much different. When I hit my early 20s, a lot of my friends became teachers, and yeah, the stuff they get onto on the show is exactly true in real life. It's hilarious. The only thing I didn't like is when they killed off Kurt and Brian, sorry, spoiler alert, but the show also has the absolutely gorgeous Andrew Lincoln too, and that was the first time I realised I had a massive crush, and love his work ever since. I hope you enjoy it.
Mayfly woken up when skies are clear. I don't mind you coming near. Give me company till she...
Then we get to season 4. The loss of Chowdhury, Bauer and James Lance as Matt, and a decline in quality is quite noticeable, and it gets steeper with each viewing. The reasons for this is that aspect of the home life which we set up initially with Simon and Maggie and continue to explore with Kurt and Brian, that is very diminished. We get the characters of Lindsay and Penny having some interaction and the new characters of season 4 too, but it is in no way an element of the show with any oomph to it. The 3 new characters don't gel. They're dislikable too, with the exception of Matthew Horne's Ben Burkett, who's a sweet, naive hypochondriac and daydreamer. But the 3 new characters come very much as a self-packaged set, and they're not particularly appealing either by themselves or with relationship to the rest of the cast. The construction of jokes is cheaper. There's not the bill. There's very much a paint by numbers kind of approach. The lead story moves to final series 1 teacher standing, Bob Porter, the head of the English department, an aged, disenfranchised wreck of a man who tries to find a new lease of life through bullying, wanking and a mail-order bride. Actor Lloyd Maguire performs well, but the scripted dialogue is static and tired, and the central story of Ping, his bride, is not particularly anything I care about much. And the most likely lead, affable Lindsay, is reduced to just a string of fat jokes which lack their previous charm. Season 4 is watchable. The visual language packed backgrounds are still there. Maybe not rewarding if you're in a hurry, you know. We all have stuff to do. Vicky Hall and Tamsin Mallison's Penny are still fun to watch. I've hinted at other supporting cast members, and it's totally worth going out on a high by talking about them, the auxiliary staff. This is an office power triumvirate that has a lasting presence over all 4 seasons. So we have the headmistress Claire, played by Gillian Bevan. She's an iron fist sort of character, no nonsense. She's got a buzzer in her office for when she summons people or is tired listening to them, done with them. She's got a very cutting manner, and she's quite the joy to watch. Also, the school secretary, Liz, played by Ellen Thomas, who is just this physically imposing sexual creature with ego problems. She's a control power freak. And the triumvirate is rounded off by Ursula Holden Gill's Carol, a twig of a woman with crossed eyes, incoherent. She speaks very rarely, mostly vocal when clapping at the beginning of daily meetings as a sort of a harbinger for Claire.
The next few days are our focus on the future days for years 10 and 11. Just a couple of things to update you with. In response to an issue raised at the last PTA, I've been looking at initiatives to improve pupil-teacher relations, which is why I've decided to introduce an open surgery or an open-door policy just for this week. Good morning. Owing to the extortionate nature of last month's stationery bill, I've decided we're going to have a stationery amnesty. Good morning. I found time yesterday to review the results of Bullying Awareness Week. Just the one brief announcement this morning. As it's National Mental Health Week, there will be a mental health fair in the hall on Thursday. Citizenship. I thought it'd be good to give this new initiative a little extra emphasis this term. Morning, everyone. Just a reminder that it's Uniform and Facial Hair Week. I also want you to incorporate the topic into your tutorial group discussions. Let's tackle it head on!
Teachers was nominated for 6 BAFTAs over the first 3 series. Richard Dale and Andrew Lincoln both got nominated for Best New Director. Jack Lothian, Ed Rowe, Charlie Martin as Best New Writer, and Best Drama Series went to the producers Jane Fallon of This Life and Rhonda Smith. There are soundtrack compilations for all 4 series of Teachers. During this podcast you heard excerpts from Bell and Sebastian's Boy with the Arab Strap and Mayfly, Solomon Bites a Worm by the Blue Tones, Get Off by the Dandy Warhols, and Juice's Little Arithmetics.
Any questions?
Looks good to me.
Excellent, thank you.
The Drill Look podcast goes up early to patreon.com/Andy Luke, then to our affiliate nerdgeist.com, and Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Casts, everywhere. So, just before you go, I'd like to give a couple of plugs. My first poetry collection, 10 years in the making, is up now on Amazon for order in print and pre-order in digital. It releases February 27th with all stuff about memoir, pop culture, philosophy, animal rights. There's a lot of surreal things going on in there. It releases at Scribes and Scribblers Con 2021, which is a all-weekend online free convention aimed at writers and artists. It is absolutely loaded with workshops. So last year we had pieces on world building, character building, how to write drama, all levels of art, from anime, more classical Western illustration, print, digital. Last year we had N.H. Weber, who gave a wonderful keynote address on cyberpunk and how this made such a wonderful opportunity for authors to come. He'll be reprising his guest turn this year along with Matthew Goodwin, Anna Machakat, and myself. I'll be talking about sociological stories and writing political activism, and my absolute masterclass in making comics so you want to be a comic book star, where everything I've learned over 20 years of making comics to become a success, it's in there, as well as a Meet the Artist event for Chaos Magic, and probably some poetry readings as well. So that's on 27th, 20th of February, Pacific time. You can find more details online at sascon.online. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll be back in a month. Actually less. There's a bonus episode coming. Whoa!